Let's do it. We are going out to California. Nate, he, him. You're saying we may have gotten JC's gender wrong. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we all know. Let me just walk out from here. My dog is playing with something. It's 1 second.
Oh yeah, you got a bit of noise going on in the background. I don't know if you're.
Yeah, is it better now?
Still
Not
a
really.
little bit. Are you on speakerphone by any chance?
Okay. No. I'm on my phone, no speaker. It should be good now, for sure.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll yell at you if it gets too unbearable.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, well, we all know that in the Bible, right, according to the fable or the story or whatever it is, Jesus Christ was born of a virgin, which means technically his mother Mary, that is, did not have sex with anybody, right? And he was born. And so let us assume for a quick second, if we give that the benefit of the doubt and say that if that is the only documented case of asexual reproduction in human history, right? It's possible. I'm talking possible, impossible, not saying likely, unlikely, right?
Sure.
If that's the only case of case of asexual reproduction in human beings, then Jesus Christ should be a clone of his mother, because if you looked at all the other species that asexually reproduce, right? You have Komodo dragons, you have some species of python that do it, great white sharks, and so many other species, which are not so very different from us. What happens is the progeny happens to be a very close match to their mothers, right? Mm-hmm. Which means then Jesus Christ should be a very close match to Mother Mary.
Yeah. Right? So I know where you're going with this, and I actually, I have a little bit of pushback because, biologically, yes, you would get someone who would be XX and a clone of their mother, assuming that Mary was also XX, which we have to make an assumption there. But I want to push back because gender is different than your biological sex, right? Do we agree on that?
Yes, absolutely.
So my perspective on this, and I'm a trans man. So if Jesus, regardless of his biology, if he's assigned male, if he was born and was called a boy and then called a man and that did not change from his birth, he would be a man.
Yeah.
Right?
He would be. Absolutely. 100% on your side there. Right? But if you went and asked any Christian today, right, they would sort of guard, metaphorically speaking, that Jesus was male, isn't it? Complete out and out male. In the sense of male that they recognize males.
But did you ask them? Have you gone down that conversation with them? Because I don't want to straw man somebody else's perspective. And I do know Christians who are in favor of trans rights and who wouldn't have a problem with that. So I want to be careful a little bit on how we engage with that particular point. But have you asked people about this particular issue?
No, not yet. No, not yet. I mean, this thought is very recently germinated in my head. While I was thinking of this, no, I've not read science per se, right? But I keep an interest in science, so I know that if there is asexually reproduced progeny, that has to be genetically extremely close or pretty much a clone of its mother, right?
Correct, and I'm not disagreeing with you there.
Why would there be an exception in this case is my question.
Yeah, it's not necessarily an exception, but the problem is, like, you have this book that has Jesus living as a male. So regardless of what someone's biology is, like I was assigned female, and I'm pretty sure that I have not been karyotyped, but I'm pretty sure my chromosomes are XX, and I know what I was born with anatomically speaking. and I can go and engage with society as a man, and nobody knows for the most part that I'm trans. So even if Jesus had been a clone of Mary, he could still engage with society as a man, right? And people writing about him could still have no reason to question whether or not he was a man. So I don't know the exact relevance of even if there's a biological inconsistency there. I don't quite see how that would change the story.
Yeah, and just real quick, Nate, I think in part one of the things that Ben is highlighting here, which I really appreciate, and I'm glad he said this, is the difference between sex and gender, and how, yeah, there are some things about both of these categories that overlap a little, but in reality, these are different things. And if what you're saying is at the end of the day, hey, kind of based on the story, just taking it at face value, it would seem on a biological sense that, yeah, Jesus probably had XX chromosomes, but that doesn't really matter when it comes to, gender and how Jesus portrayed himself and how the rest of the community engaged with him and all of that stuff. Now, let's also be honest here and just say, for sure, I think on Ben and my part, we're being pretty damn charitable about the Bible, giving a super accurate account of this fella's life and all that, right? And I think that's something that's also worth remembering too, is that when we're on a non-religious side, oftentimes we're going to look at these types of fanciful stories and we'll try to, especially if we're being really charitable, we'll try to work them into the most, reasonable, naturalistic, something we've got evidence for type of answer, right? When in reality, a lot of times the answer for a believer in a supernatural entity of some kind, afterlife, Yahweh, whatever, right? A lot of times the answer is, oh, well, my God is just powerful enough to do the thing that you say it can't be done, And so at the end of the day, I think for a lot of people, if we go talk to them and we get them to sit down and do a basic biology course with us, and we walk them through parthenogenesis and talk about, chromosomes and how you get some from one parent and some from the other. And if we did all of that, I think for a lot of people, we'd get to the point at the end where they go, yeah, but God, like I understand why it doesn't work on the math and the paper and the lab, but God, right? I mean, God did it. So I think it's kind of a fun, thought experiment maybe to play with and kind of work with. But definitely when it comes to, like, I would say convincing, believers that, hey, maybe some of this is unfounded, I don't know that this is exactly the best route. But still, like I said, I enjoy talking about stuff like this, sitting around, Friday nights at a bar, drinking and laughing about stuff. I mean, I say, hey man, you know what kills me is you got all these hardcore fundamentalists today, so anti-LGBTQ, they don't even realize that their savior is actually trans. I love trans.
He's on their side.
I love that.
That's
thought.
what I'm saying.
So
he's actually on their side, and he's always been on their side. And for 2,000 years, an overwhelming vast majority of everybody has been taken for a ride. That's where I was coming from. That not 1 or 2 years, but 2,000 years, we've gotten it all wrong, right? That's all my point was. And I thought it was an interesting ponder, given the lay kind of person I am. I'm not a science person or anything like that, as in I've not read science. But from what I've read, I thought this is how it should be, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, I think this is definitely, this is something kind of fun. I like to play around with thoughts like this. Like what is the best possible answer as to how Noah was able to get all these animals and all that jazz, But even still, I think at the end of the day, there are some other things that maybe are a little bit more worthwhile when especially engaging with believers, to kind of go down that route. But at the same time, Nate, I mean, we really, really appreciated your call. I like I said, I love kind of going through that stuff and kind of working it out and seeing where it all shakes out and what the most possible answer is. Um, Ben, it looks like we have some other calls, but do you have any other thoughts or anything on that one before we move
Yeah,
on?
I feel like, there's no way to get around this now.
Mm.
You've all been already discussing this, but I have to come out to all of you and say that I am actually trans Jesus. Like, I am the second coming of trans Jesus. So I know you've been waiting for far too long. I went to get cigs and some milk, and I forgot to come back, but here I am.
I
I'm back,
always
everyone.
I always wondered that you never seem to step in a puddle, Ben, and I never could figure out
Right.
why. I didn't know if it was just like good footman work or whatever, good footwork. I wasn't sure, but now I know.